Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas y muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros para este evento sobre el acoso escolar y el ciberacoso, la intervención eficaz desde el centro. Me llamo Louise Connelly, soy formadora certificada del programa KiVa en Macmillan Education y junta con mi compañera Raquel Pastor, también formadora del programa KiVa en Macmillan Education, seremos vuestras anfitrionas hoy. El propósito de este evento es profundizar más en el programa del acoso escolar y sobre todo buscar soluciones. Hoy contamos con la colaboración de la doctora Christina salmivalli, creadora del prestigioso programa KiVa de prevención del acoso escolar. Y ahora quería, invitar a Raquel Pastor, mi compañera, mi coanfitriona, porque me parece, Raquel, que tienes preparada una entrevista muy interesante con la doctora Christina salmivalli, que es la creadora, ¿no?, del programa KiVa de la Universidad de Turku en Finlandia. Y creo que la entrevista se centrará sobre el fenómeno del acoso escolar, sus efectos y la necesidad de abordarlo de forma sistemática y eficaz para al final, ¿no?, crear un entorno escolar seguro para todos y todas. Así que Raquel, si estás lista, empezamos la entrevista con Christina salmivalli.
Pues sí, estoy lista, Luis, y nada, muchísimas gracias y encantada de estar esta tarde aquí en esta jornada sobre el acoso escolar. Y como bien dices, hemos preparado una entrevista fabulosa. Para nosotros es una oportunidad estupenda tener el testimonio de la doctora Christina salmivalli, y lo que hemos hecho es seleccionar una serie de preguntas bastante recurrentes que cuando hablábamos con equipos directivos, con profesores, con familias, generalmente nos solían preguntar, y hemos pensado que qué mejor momento que este para hacerlas. Y la primera pregunta que le vamos a hacer a la doctora Christina salmivalli es ¿cuál es el origen del programa KiVa?
The KiVa program was born in 2006, so that's when the Ministry of Education in Finland took the initiative for its development, and they launched a call for offers or kind of competition for different actors and organizations for the development and evaluation of an anti-bullying program that could be widely utilized in Finnish schools that provide basic education. My team was, of course, very interested in taking part, and we were selected, I guess, mainly because we had been done research on bullying since the early 1990s, so there was a long history of research on bullying, a lot of knowledge, and also we had been developing and evaluating some small-scale interventions even before that. So 2006 was the year when the contract was done between the University of Turku and the Finnish Ministry of Education, and that's when we started to develop the materials. But of course, we didn't start from zero at 2006, but there were already a lot of ideas about how bullying should be prevented, and now we got the resources to really put all these into concrete tools.
Pues muchas gracias, Cristina. La siguiente pregunta es quizá una de las más habituales y es saber, conocemos que España tiene una realidad desde el punto de vista cultural muy distinta de la de Finlandia, pero ¿por qué también el programa KiVa funciona en nuestro país?
Although KiVa program was developed in Finland, we already have evidence that it also works outside of Finland, and I think that bullying is such a universal phenomenon. It's not tied to a specific culture or country-specific characteristics. I think that the basic mechanisms for bullying are very similar across countries and cultures, and And that's why prevention and intervention methods that work in one place are also likely to work elsewhere. And well, maybe one example that is close to Spain is Italy, where Ersilia Menecini's research group made a very rigorous randomized control trial of KiVa program, and they had actually very strong positive effects there.
Gracias, Cristina. Nos interesaría mucho ahora saber, desde los estudios que habéis realizado y vuestro conocimiento, cuál es el origen del acoso escolar, cómo se genera realmente este fenómeno.
Well, the reason for bullying existing overall, why do we have this phenomenon? It's very complex, and of course there is not one reason, and we have to look for the reasons in several levels. By levels, I mean that, of course, at the individual level, there are some characteristics of individuals that increase their risk of bullying others. And we know, for instance, that there are two characteristics that are pretty good when we try to predict who ends up bullying others. And these are lack of empathy, and secondly, the need and quest for status and power in the group. So children and young people, as well as adults, differ in terms of these characteristics. Some have a stronger need for status and power, some have more or less empathy. And when there is a combination of strong need for power, very little empathy, that really increases the likelihood of bullying. But that's just the individual level, so we have to take into account also other factors, because bullying is more likely to happen in some environments and in some schools than in others, even if the students with their characteristics would be equal. And for instance, the peer group is one factor. If other peers encourage the bullying behavior, if they reward it socially, for instance, laughing or gathering around when bullying is taking place, that can signal to the bullies that their behavior is acceptable, and they may feel that they gain something by doing it. And this is, of course, one important feature in the environment. If the environment rewards or does not intervene in bullying, it's more likely to continue. And of course, school level is there. It's very important and critical. If a school doesn't take bullying seriously and communicate this to the students, and if the school doesn't take effective measures to prevent bullying and to intervene it, it's more likely to happen.
Un fenómeno complejo y con muchos aspectos a tener en cuenta. Gracias, Cristina. Nos gustaría ahora centrarnos en la época del COVID-19 que estamos viviendo y que nos ha hecho enfrentarnos a situaciones anómalas y además excepcionales, que ha provocado además cambios vivenciales a muchísimos niveles. ¿Cómo consideras que ha afectado la pandemia al fenómeno del acoso escolar? Y también queríamos saber si habéis llevado a cabo algún tipo de investigación o habéis notado algún incremento especial respecto al ciberacoso.
Indeed, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it started 1 year ago and the schools were closed for a period of time, about 2 months in Finland, we did a study where the students were responding to online surveys at their homes during remote education. And we really had a big sample of about 50,000 students from all grade levels. And related to bullying, one thing that we found was that the overall rate of bullying really went down very rapidly. So in a way, and I don't know, maybe that's more sad than happy thing, that this seemed to be really the best intervention against bullying that has ever been invented, that the kids didn't come to school anymore. However, some interesting observations were there. The amount, even if the total number of students who were bullied really went down dramatically, there were still some students who continued to be bullied during the remote education. That was about 2 to 3% of all students. And that number, that proportion, is really equal to the proportion of students who is cyberbullied in normal times. So it seemed like really that part of bullying was still there during remote education. And we also saw who were the students who continued to be bullied during remote education. And those were the students who most often had been bullied most regularly, even before remote education. So those students who had been bullied weekly or more often before, they were the ones who were most likely to continue being bullied during remote education. So I would say that overall the amount of bullying didn't increase. It didn't move from schoolyard to cyberspace, but that amount of bullying that already happened, took place in the internet, that amount remained at the same level.
Datos reveladores, Cristina. Pasamos a la siguiente pregunta y nos centramos en que sabemos cuál es la gran preocupación por parte tanto de las familias como de los centros escolares en torno a los dispositivos móviles y el uso que hacen los niños, niñas y adolescentes de ellos. ¿Qué consejos harías llegar a las familias sobre el uso de la tecnología para evitar esas situaciones que sabemos se producen de ciberacoso?
Well, I think that overall the most important thing is to create a confidential relationship with your child or adolescent, because of course children use technology and young people use technology, and that's a very good thing, and they can learn a lot, they can have contacts, and they do have contacts there, and they are in social media almost all the time. So I think that it's really important that the parents know what their kids are doing online, with whom they are in contact, and so on. So it's basically the same rules that apply to offline context. It's good that the parents know when their kids go out to meet someone, that they know where and with whom, and so on. It's very important to emphasize to kids that if they face bullying, whether it happens online or offline, that they should talk about to their parents. But I think that the confidence and the good relationship is really the basis for everything. We can't stop cyberbullying by preventing the use of technology, for instance. That just doesn't work. It's not the world where we are living now. And adding to that about cyberbullying, I think it's also important, of course, that the parents talk to their kids about respectful communication, because this is something that we seem to lack nowadays. I mean, there is a lot of hate speech, also by adults, and maybe especially by adults, and kids, of course, also see this and they learn from adults. So it's really important to discuss with our kids about the need to respect everyone, and that the same rules apply online as offline. If you wouldn't say something face to face to a person, you are not supposed to say those things online.
Está claro, Cristina, la importancia que tiene la familia también en el abordar el tema del ciberacoso. Vamos a ir a la última pregunta, y es de qué manera KiVa trabaja específicamente en el ciberacoso.
Yeah, it's often asked from us whether and how KiVa addresses cyberbullying. And one answer to that is that, well, addressing bullying in general also helps to prevent and stop and reduce cyberbullying. Because cyberbullying is also bullying, and what I mentioned before, lack of empathy and need for status and power, these same predictors of bullying behavior, they also apply to online bullying. And if we can change these things, as well as the peer group's responses when they see bullying happening, it's the same thing. If you witness bullying in the schoolyard, you should not encourage it. If you witness bullying in online context, you should not encourage it, but rather you should support the person who is treated badly. So I think this is very important to understand. We don't necessarily need specific measures to all different types of bullying. However, in KiVa program, because cyberbullying of course became more and more discussed in the society, and many schools wanted to have more materials to talk about cyberbullying and about the specific characteristics that it has. So we also created that kind of material for the student lessons. Now we have lessons that talk about cyberbullying, about bullying as a crime. These two often go together, and addresses the problem of cyberbullying. But already in our first evaluation study that we started in 2007 with KiVa program, we saw very big reductions in all forms of bullying, including cyberbullying. And I think that's the best evidence so far anywhere in the world that a randomized control trial reduced cyberbullying to such big extent. So we also have evidence that KiVa helps to reduce cyberbullying, and since those times we have created more material specifically about cyberbullying.
Pues un mensaje más que potente y alentador, que se puede trabajar en el ciberacoso y cómo lo hace KiVa. Por nuestra parte, ya darle las gracias a Christina Salmivalli, y también queremos aprovechar para mandar un saludo y agradecer el apoyo de todo el equipo KiVa de la Universidad de Turku, que además están acompañándonos hoy en este evento, y mandarles un saludo. Por mi parte, simplemente ya pasar la palabra de nuevo a mi compañera Luis, para que continúes con los siguientes invitados. Muchas gracias.
Raquel, muy bien,
¿Sí?
gracias Raquel. Raquel, tenemos un par de preguntas que creo que sería interesante abordar ahora acerca del programa KiVa. La primera es si KiVa es extrapolable a todos los colegios de España, o depende del contexto del colegio, puede variar la metodología del proyecto.
Bueno, yo creo que también con el testimonio que nos ha contado la doctora Christina Salmivalli, sabemos que funciona, la evidencia nos lo dice, y es más, se va corroborando, con lo cual sabemos que en cualquier contexto, no solamente en el finlandés y en el español, sino aquí es independiente totalmente, funciona, sabemos que así es.
Y está funcionando en muchos países. España, Italia, muchos países de Europa y otros países de otros continentes, ¿verdad?
Exacto, sabemos, ahora creo que son 18 países, hay países en Iberoamérica, en Europa, ahí está Alemania, Reino Unido, hay hasta, creo que es 18 países, y datos tenemos los más similares, como comentaba, a España, los tenemos en Italia, con un estudio que se hizo, pero en todos ellos se corrobora que el programa está funcionando en todos ellos, allá donde estén.
Muy bien, genial. Gracias, Raquel.
A ti, Luis.
Y ahora, muy bien, gracias.